Archival collections can be wonderful resources, but finding them can sometimes be tricky, as archival materials on any one person or subject can end up in multiple locations. One of the best places to search for archival collections is ArchiveGrid. ArchiveGrid is like Google for archival materials. It contains over 7 million records with descriptions, finding aids, and contact information for over 1,400 different institutions throughout the United States and from around the world. ArchiveGrid has a mapping function and a list of locations that you can use to find archives near you or in locations where your veteran may have served or lived. Let's scroll down and see the West Virginia archives listed in ArchiveGrid's database. As you can see, not all of the archives in the state are included, such as the West Virginia State Archives in Charleston. So while ArchiveGrid may contain tons of information, it does not have everything that's out there. But it is still an essential tool because Google doesn't search all of the archival websites that ArchiveGrid does. ArchiveGrid also allows you to search directly. You can search for individual people, as well as military units, ships, aircraft, battles, or just about any subject that relates to your veteran. Let's do an example search using a veteran from a previous project year, Joseph J. Nekoranec. Joseph Nekoranec was a U.S. Army engineer during World War II. He was stationed in Alaska as part of the Aleutian Islands campaign and conducted surveys of airfields in the Aleutians. When we search for him, we get a hit, Joseph J. Nekoranec Collection, circa 1942 to 1943. This is extraordinarily lucky. Most veterans don't have their own archival collection just waiting to be discovered. The ArchiveGrid descriptions can tell us a lot about the collection and what it contains. It tells us who owned and donated the collection, Gene Thomas, and where the collection is housed and cared for now, the Alaska State Library. The description also tells us what the collection contains. Here we see that Joseph Nekoranec's collection is all photographs from his time in Alaska during World War II. It contains 96 negatives, 41 of which have been scanned and digitized. There is also a note on the types of subjects these photos contain. The description also informs us the collection is available to look at, as sometimes archival collections can be restricted or closed to the public due to time limits or other stipulations set by the collection's donor, privacy concerns, or sensitive materials. Last but not least, the description tells us that in order to use these images in our biography, we must contact the librarian for permission. And as always, we must remember to cite our photos. Lastly, there is a link provided for the collection's finding aid under Related Resources. A finding aid is a document written by archivists to describe a collection. A finding aid will often include information about the history of the collection, the arrangement of materials, and descriptions of the contents. It can help you identify what materials might be useful for you and your research. In the finding aid for Joseph Nekoranec's collection, we encounter all of the same information that we saw on ArchiveGrid, and we can also see the collection's organization. There are descriptions for the photographs in the collection to give us a better idea of what's inside and to make up our minds about what we may want to ask the library for. Each archive may have different rules and processes required to view their collections. While some institutions may be able to send you digitized materials free of charge, others may require payment to scan and send things to you. So be prepared to ask for a small selection of items rather than everything there is. For this collection, 41 of the photos are digitized, so that makes it easier for the archivist to send us those materials. However, some collections may not have anything digitized, and the archive may be located too far away to visit. In these cases, the finding aid can really come in handy to help you determine what materials to ask for. Once we know that this collection could be useful for our research, we can head back over to ArchiveGrid and click the Contact Information button. And with the help of your teacher, send an email to the archive letting them know that we wish to see these materials. Unfortunately, it is very unlikely that every veteran will have their own collection, so let's do another example search that's broader and not specific to any one person. Let's take an example from another past veteran in our project, Ralph Wayne Poling. Ralph Poling was an Army Air Force bomber crewman during World War II. He was part of the 512th Squadron of the 376th Bombardment Group. He served as a top turret gunner on a B-24 Liberator. When we search for Ralph Poling in ArchiveGrid, we don't get any hits off his name. However, what we can do is search for information about his bombardment group or his aircraft. When we search for the 376th Bombardment Group, we get a couple of hits that might be helpful. a collection of oral histories, a brief history from the U.S. Air Force Academy, and a collection of group records dating back to 1938. Any of these collections could have materials that might help you understand what Ralph Pohling's service looked like, the sort of missions his squadron was a part of, what a B-24 Liberator looked like and how it functioned, or the importance of his role as top turret gunner. These sorts of collections, while not specific to the veteran themselves, can be a valuable resource for your research. They can provide historical context and build up the picture around your veteran of what their lives and experiences may have looked like. Always keep in mind that you're not writing exclusively about the veteran's military experience. Use ArchiveGrid to search for information on their civilian employers or communities as well. Hopefully, our two-part video on archives has given you a boost in your primary source research. Good luck.